what brought us here today was a series of events that started a long time ago, and we call this the IEEE blockchain series at home, because you can attend at home or at work right now, it depends, or on your free time. And today we will be discussing about blockchain and transition finance and environmental, social, and governance ratings. This talk is provided by Professor Manuel Gatti at IEEE Business School. Manuel Gatti is a professor at the University in Madrid, specializing in fintech, blockchain, AI, machine learning, and risk management. He holds an executive MBA from IE Business School and degrees in computer science and statistics from the University of São Paulo. His career includes key roles at Bravo Capital and Santander Bank, focusing on credit ranking, big data, and risk analysis. He is also an active contributor to discussions on big data in trending and risk management through interviews and publications. So I would say that Professor Manuel is going to lead us in a talk about sorry, I missed my slide. I can't see my notes. It doesn't matter. But he will do a brief introduction on the topic, like I did a little bit earlier. But he will be discussing for about 40 minutes. Feel free to put, if you have any questions, to write them down on the chat, and he will, or I will let him know that we have some questions in the chat if you want to make this a little bit interactive. And we also have a final Q&A session after his talk where João Corrado, which is someone who is also organizing these talks with people, he will also be intervening so that we can have a more interactive Q&A session. So any questions, please write them down on the chat or in the last Q&A session. That being said, Manuel, the stage is yours, so feel free to share your screen, and thank you for accepting the invitation.
So thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, idea of the presentation today is that I have to like playing the field here, make sure that everyone knows what blockchain is, what transition finance is before, and then the role of transition finance in the transformation, in the sustainability, ESG things. And then we're going to discuss the supporting organizations, some of the KPIs. Then when we reach the challenges and roadblocks, we actually see how everything comes together, how blockchain will help us overtaking or overcoming those challenges and roadblocks and fighting specifically greenwashing and with blockchain. So, but to begin with, I would like to share with you a little questionnaire. So can you please come and join this little presentation, this little Mentimeter? You can scan the QR or you can join menti.com and then enter the code that is in there. And then you just tell me, what is your understanding? What do you understand by blockchain? So that I don't spend like an hour explaining what blockchain is. Data record, decentralization, immutability. Replication. Interesting. Does the person that ledger distributed replication? Does it mean it's like this, like decentralized or distributed? Is that what you? The person that said replication, like having many copies. Future. Good. I see very interesting. Like decentralization there. Good. Decentralized immutability network. A peer-to-peer network, I suppose. Data. Mm. So if you're joining the meeting, I'm just asking, what do you understanding? What do you understand by blockchain? Very, very good. This brings the table here. For me, I'm gonna come back later if there is any more people writing here. I have a summary that I first got it from XRP Commons. They are in France. I stole this from their presentation directly, but I've changed it slightly from what they used to say. So like expanded a little bit. And what I wouldn't say that a blockchain is a distributed ledger, because it makes you do not understand what it is exactly. And for me, the definition that captures more of what the blockchain is may be quite complicated, but it captures all the elements. It's a shared, encrypted virtual machine. It's not a database. It's basically all the nodes in the networks are virtual machines that runs, in some cases, Solidity language that runs the blockchain, the software that in there. And for what? For sharing resources. What are the basic resources, Professor? Well, a database where you put a row. What's that row? It's what we call a ledger. You put a ledger there. Good. But we also, in this virtual machine, we also can have shared storage. You can share your NFT if you mint your NFT. Your NFT will be there residing, stored in the blockchain. It's shared. It's shared in the point that you can have access to it. Anyone can have access to it. Then you can also share resources like memory. You can use the memory of the computers that are in the virtual machine or the CPU time to calculate things. Those things are typical in the examples of smart contracts. So if you're just talking about Bitcoin, Bitcoin would only be like a ledger. It would only be a database in the end of the day with rows. And it is encrypted. Yes, it is. It is you're using a virtual machine that encapsulate internally this little database. What is also some properties of this thing is that this thing is immutable. It's like a SQL, a SQL that you remove the from select, insert, update. You can do select, you can do insert, but you cannot do updates. You remove that. It's immutable because you cannot do deletes. You cannot do drop tables. You can only do select and insert. It is distributed and decentralized. Those two things are not the same. So distributed means that the data you put in there will have copies everywhere. It will have copies in all the nodes in the network. Though that's talking about the data, the database, the storage, not the memory of the CPU. Maybe you're not doing it distributed. You're not doing everywhere. And there's variances in this thing, but distributed is about the data. And then decentralized, that's not the same, is the how this thing actually operates or decides which data is stored or which data is allowed to actually be stored or which data is allowed to be updated or inserted a new one because there is no update. Remember, if you have a variable like my name in one blockchain, name can be updated to a new name, but the previous name will be there. Like if a variable is like a tube on the time, and then you get several versions of it, and then you always see looking at the most recent version of it. So is this clear? Anyone, if you have any questions about this definition here? And in the end of the day, a blockchain, in my opinion, and then also in opinion of XRP Commons, works better when it's coordinating heterogeneous actors. What it means here, if you're doing an internal project for your company only, and you're not going to have customers, it's just an internal thing between your department, within your department, why would you bother implementing in a shared open database? Why don't you do in an application that is completely local? You do not need even the cloud computing. You can use it a local thing on your company, a local processor. But if you are going to be working with other departments of your company, and the company is global, maybe you decide to use the cloud, but not a blockchain. A blockchain becomes interesting when you actually managing things that are between many different companies, especially if there is a government in the middle, and if there is a bank in the middle, and if there is you that is building something. And that kind of interaction, for example, in international payments between somebody that is sending you something from Asia here to Portugal. So you have an interaction, you need that person to send the material, you receive the material, and then you make a payment. Do you see that in this example, you need to trust that the person will send, so you do not send the money before. If you send the money before, maybe you do not receive the stuff. And the person right there, that person sending you the material, sending you the thank you buy, maybe sending it, and it needs to believe that you're going to pay for the when you receive the delivery. What is the problem there? We're working in one example where you need trust. This problem has been solved by banks. Banks have international contracts where they actually verify some stuff, and they make the payment there for you. So you need an external person, an intermediary, that makes that thing that I don't trust the person that is sending me the stuff. You do not trust the person that is receiving the stuff. You need someone in the middle. Who is that someone in the middle? Visa, MasterCard, or some international payment system. Now here with blockchain, you get that middleman that is doing creating the trust, and then you're making something that needs no trust. We call it trustless, a system where you can hold both things. What do you mean? I mean, you can send me the stuff. I can write a contract in the blockchain that says the moment that you make me a payment, your payment gets to be stored but not delivered. It's like blocked from your wallet, hold it somewhere, and then only when somebody from, let's say, DHS actually delivers the good for you, that smart, and when we get the confirmation from DHS that it has been delivered, payment is automatically um, delivered. So the payment that was stopped is actually released, and the person right there gets the money. I'm not talking about something that is completely crazy, because that's exactly the process if you have MetaMask of you acquiring cryptocurrency on MetaMask. Because when you're actually making a payment in euro, the person that is sending you, let's say, a Bitcoin, would have the Bitcoin already sent to your wallet, but not actually arriving to your wallet. We have that process of when the money gets to that person's account, the Bitcoin is automatically released. So we eliminating the need for the intermediary. We're making everything here inside that little process. And this is important for what we're going to discuss later. So those are the biggest principles here of blockchain that we're going to need in a minute as we're going to discuss the rest of the problem. Now, this is the technology. So we have a problem to solve. This is probably the technology we're going to use. So let's try to understand the problem now. What do you understand by transition finance? Let's go there. And let me move it to the next one. Where is it? Okay, here it is. What do you understand by transition finance, please? Remember, if you are in a meeting and you want to join the Menti, you can go menti.com and use that little code. I can copy here and share it with you guys. Je n'étais pas à l'hôpital au moment de l'explosion. J'étais chez moi à environ 5. Okay, just sharing the Menti. Okay, guys, what do you understand by transition finance? Decarbonization. Digital transformation. Remove borders. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. Remove borders. I guess it's in the differentiation with ESG finance. ESG finance is that one where we're trying to get to meet the Paris Agreement, where we're trying to decarbonize the society. So we're measuring the emissions in a specific year, and we're trying to reach in 2030 or 2035 the Paris Agreement. And then we measure all the companies according to that carbon emissions, or all countries, and then all countries that's the ESG, and then the SGD for the countries, and then the ESG for the companies. And then transition finance, as we can see here, is that I can understand where you're coming from with the remove borders here, is that transition finance is not made for all companies. What was the problem when we started with the ESG rating things? Is that ESG rating can be applied to anybody, and then we can apply ESG for Microsoft. We can apply it to Repsol, we can apply it to Shell, we can apply it to an energy company, or we can apply it for the government. What happens is some companies just happen to be in a market that pollute less, just because they are in a business of hiring bicycles or selling bicycles. But if you are in a business of extracting petrol, oil, crude, you are necessary for society, but your ESG rating would be bad. So transition finance is that finance or that money from the government specifically targeting companies that have a not very good rating to begin with, but the government wants to get that important company that produces oil and then make it a little bit better. If it makes some projects that make that company better, the whole government, the whole country will look better. Because we cannot only work with companies that are good, we have to work with companies that are left behind, because their sector will remain there. So this is the idea of transition finance. Transition finance is actually working with the it's not like the green finance. Green finance works for good ESG ratings, good companies, good projects. Here we're helping projects that actually are not very good, not in companies that are not very good. And worse, it doesn't work very well either with project finance. What do you mean? Most You're not financing the whole company because the company is actually not very good, doesn't have a very good rating to begin with. And then the second thing is that project that you may be financing as the government is probably not the best financially speaking, because maybe it's better to remain doing cracking, remaining getting the gases from within the earth, next to the south of Portugal. But you prefer to invest in another thing to make the transition. So that project may not be better financially compared to the initial one. So it's specific funding for this kind of project. So there are projects that have a bigger impact on the company's ESG rating. And here is this is where we are. So transition finance is a part of the money that is invested for company. What's the problem in transition finance? Well, guys, if you think about this green finance thing, green finance opens the door for the ESG ratings that we're going to discuss a little bit later. But the ESG rating basically is a rating from AAA to C that ranks the company from good to bad. What happens in there is, well, once you have the rating, you can get access to funds, and that funds can be public or private. When you have private funds investing on the companies, they have their ways of verifying if the company is doing well, yes or no. But they are not interested in transition finance because it's not financially the best option, because it's better to remain doing the cracking. So they are probably not interested in the returns we're gonna get on this financing. And they will not audit it. We're not gonna be auditing the thing from a business point of view. So we need the governments to be auditing this stuff in another way. So this is where the little help of auditing from blockchain will come from. So because it's all public money in the end of the day. So it's all funds from Europe, from the US, from other sources that are helping specifically for industry that are the most polluters. So transition finance is a vital mechanism to actually create what we call linked debt securities. So we are incentivizing the progress towards sustainability. So it's a project-based things that are actually linked to some KPIs that can measure your sustainable impact or the impact of those sustainability on your company's ESG. Who is doing this? Who is organizing this stuff? So we have several supporting organizations. So we have the IFC, International Finance Corporation, the Green Climate Fund, that is also helping, the European Investment Banking, they putting funds on this. We have in Asia, Asian Development Bank, that have green energy and climate adaptation projects for Arabic for Asia, climate investment funds, and then even in Africa, we have the African Development Bank that invests in specifically clean energy, climate adaptation, and sustainability infrastructure. And then Europe is, as you can see here, it's investing a lot on the sustainable infrastructure and then green energy as well. So for projects in energy creation, energy transformation, and so on and so forth. The impacts, as we can see here, in the case of energy, we have in energy we have the solar and wind power projects specifically for reducing fossil fuel. And then in infrastructure here, we have the creation of greener steel and cement, that production cut the CO2 emissions by a lot, 10 billion here dollars. In transportation, sustainable transport increased the EV adoption here in Europe with the plants, lower transport emissions, improved urban air quality. And in manufacturing, we have examples of specifically in Asia, China specifically, the reduced energy and water consumption in textile. Of course, we indirectly use we buy a lot of textile from Asia. So if we get the proper ESG, people in here uses the textile that were produced there. So and the pollution is being generated there, but it's actually generated for us. So it's kind of some discussion on this thing, and this is why blockchain could actually calculate better the whole impact of the whole carbon distribution here. So guys, let me go for another question there on our dynamic thing. Can you please rank this thing of tell me what role should financial institution play in driving transition finance? I mean, not the governments. The governments are already preparing the money, and then they are giving to companies that normally pollute more. This is the role of the financial transition finance, so that they do projects to pollute less and water consumption. What's the role of the financial institutions, the banks? Should they get involved? So some actually say, one says that facilitating the flow of capital, so getting involved in the payments here, and three are saying that they should actually get involved in the whole process, like supporting clients in their transition journey, maybe with the ESG rating, maybe with help of actually designing the project ideas. I don't know, but and then somebody said leading the way by developing and promoting innovative financial instruments. They do have financial instruments for the green finance, but not for transition finance. Not still. Good, interesting comments here. Let me ask you another question here. In your opinion, how critical is transition finance for achieving global climate goals? So, you know, the Paris Agreement. Do you think this matters, or we don't care about it, as in the right one there, or it's not critical? We can do it with green finance. Interesting. So most of you came to hear about it, to learn something about it. The next one, guys, let me hold it for a while. You can go there and start answering it already, but I'm going to go here and start. Oh, no. Right. No, let me take this one and then I go with the solution as we were doing. When evaluating transition finance projects, guys, which metric do you consider the most important one here? The green gas emissions directly, sustainability performance, ESG ratings, or other? There's no right answer. It's just I want to know your opinion on this. Which one do you think would be better? CO2 only, several sustainability performance targets, or ESG rating as a whole? Good. A lot of people are putting sustainability performance targets, and I'm going to come back to this in a second. You can still respond if you're there. What is the idea here of the KPI? So we can have the carbon emissions, just the total carbon emission, or we can have several other metrics making the KPI. What is the problem with that? If we go here from the left to the right and then to the next round. If you're just measuring CO2 as a whole, it's easy to do, easier than the rest, because it's just one variable. What's the complication on this? It's not measuring everything. It's really very focused on one problem. It's not looking water at all. It's not looking the secondary aspects of the CO2. What are like even the quality of what other gases that are involved in the with the CO2 in the end of the day, and so on and so forth. And so not social impacts and everything. So people complain a lot about this simple idea, and they went for other ideas. What was the problem with the other idea? That a lot of countries, they went for sustainable performance targets, and with that, you ask country one, you get an answer. You ask a country two, you get a different answer of what KPIs, what measurements, what variables should we use. So it became very uncontrolled, this thing. So countries could not sit together and define a set of important variables. So who stepped in? The ESG rating agencies, the MSCCI, the PwC, for the company based, and then the rating agents like Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch, and or another example here, Sustainalytics. So those guys, they came with an idea of coming up with a ESG rating that measures everything. But here we actually going to get the ESG ratings from central companies. So people started saying, okay, now I'm actually losing control as the government of what my objectives are because I'm giving away to that control for an external ESG rating company that have their metrics. And then, well, this can be discussed for a long time in the Q&A, or the goods and bads of every option here. But let me just go with what a ESG rating would look like. So basically, ESG rating, in the end of the day, would look into several industries because it needs to be industry based, because this thing needs to be industry based because industries pollute differently. And then we would give grades to every single element of that company. Oh, if it's good for the customer relations, if it's good for capital human, we would health and safety and responsible production and so on and so forth, and would give a like a red bad score, very high risk, moderate risk here in the yellow. Nobody is yellow here, but high risk for the other ones here. This is an example of Moody's. For people that is interest, if when you get the presentation, I have a model right here written in Python that you can have a look that is calculating a ESG. It's actually creating some random data here and applying all typical metrics that we typically use for a proper ESG rating, and then calculating the ESG rating for the company as a total here in the final one. So you can have a look there if you want to as a reference. But what are the problems that we face when we get to these things? Even the CO2. The second option, that is getting some metrics, KPIs, or getting ESG rates from externals, we have several problems. The first is regulatory uncertainty. If we have a lack of a definition of the KPIs, we don't know what actually to measure. We have high financial cost to implement this thing. We have institutional resistance, and then we have the worst of the worst is that companies try to like use some makeup on their balance sheet and P&L just to look good, but not to actually do good. So there are several articles that talk about the ESG greenwashing. So they work specifically for doing financial engineering, looking like they're doing better things, but they are not. So how do we actually fight this thing? So for fighting the greenwashing problem, we could use the blockchain. So, but you're gonna help me. Can you rank, please, from your problem here, from many problems that we have looked into, which one is worse and which one is the worst problem? Rank from top to bottom the aspects that you believe are most vulnerable to greenwashing practice. So greenwashing is manipulation. Let's say I'm a bad company trying to manipulate, so I get the funds from transition finance, but I do not do well. So what do you think is the easiest way for me to protect? I think right. Getting interesting responses here. Lobby for weaker regulation. Trying to manipulate the information that I give to the ESG rating companies. Here, I actually need to correct here that setting ambiguous or targets. It's actually not unambiguous. It's ambiguous. That means that you actually define something that is it was achievable before, and you didn't need to do anything. So you just made some quite small changes there, and you reached the target. Lack of transparency and potential misleading information. That is, and then misuse categories of activities that are claimed to support the transition. So getting your NACE code or CNAE code or the industry that you're working on, saying that you're now working on a slightly different industry just for the sake of getting a better classification in the end of the day. So you can see here many ways companies do try to manipulate. And then now I want to hear from you, how do you think blockchain, that little distributed databases that we're talking about at the very beginning, how can they be used for fighting greenwashing, for fighting what you just told me that could be done? I'm gonna give you some ideas later, but I want to hear from you before. Right. I think the person that said truth, there is a naming blockchain we use, it's ground truth. Right? I think it's what you referring here. Ground truth is the data that is in there and nobody changes it. Robust governance models. Good. Transparency, if it's open, it could be even in a closed private blockchain anyways. Public blockchain is when everyone can see what data is in there. If you obviously, it's encrypted. So if you obviously have the password for the smart contract, but if it's a private blockchain, could it still give you transparency? Because people could see the data. Any more ideas? And now let me tell you some of the things that we have here. So guys, we have revised several studies. So basically we performed a systematic review using Prisma, and we revised 27 studies, and then we deleted some studies, ending up with several studies that we actually read using this methodology. And the key findings that we discovered was that, well, this guy can use the power of immutability. It can make the thing more transparent and trustworthy. And then actually it can work in several ways, like several objectives that we can do. So in tokenize, for example, we can work on tokenization. So some of the papers there, they were talking about tokenization of green assets. So saying that, let's say you actually get one company that has a very big project that they were working on, but that project so big that no national, it's the whole Europe involved, that no government will put all the money. We can break it into many small pieces, and then we can get small governments to invest on, or we can have also small investors to get into that project, or we work in a project that is transformation for many companies, not only one company, and then the project is actually doing what we call a fractional ownership here. Democratize investment for many people, increases liquidity because we can make like a secondary market, enhance transparency. Another way of doing this is the smart contract verification. So you can actually, like, let's say, upload a picture, and the picture becomes an NFT that is unique from a moment in time and a location, saying that that part of the project that was maybe destroying a building was completed, and it becomes there using the power of IoT combined to say, like, with sensors data, that some papers were talking about that as well, and then use AI powered analysis. So let's say both machine learning with computer vision, or even chatbots nowadays. And then the whole thing can be done into real-time ESG monitoring. So some papers right there, they were talking about these ideas of data collection, blockchain recording, AI analysis, and automated alerts. So the specifically talking about the ESG rating papers, that was one of the issues with the ESG ratings that some papers discussed was, oh, we actually becoming very centralized in that way, because now it's all Moody's, Fitch, and maybe PwC that are doing the ESG ratings. Can we actually make ESG ratings that are voting from experts in Europe, like a series of experts that will revise the projects? Well, we can do transparent voting using the blockchain. So rating decisions made through a verifiable consensus mechanism. We're not talking that everyone can vote. It has to be an expert, an engineer, or someone involved in finance that would have to revise the project anonymously, like IEEE does with the papers themselves. So this is what some people here were discussing about the decentralized autonomous organization for community-driven ESG ratings. That is an incredible, interesting idea from my point of view. So guys, just as a final thing, because I'm running out of time, we have analyzing 27 with 3 key applications here: ESG transparency, tokenization, and anti-greenwashing. And then we have several technologies involved in making that happen. Just as a checkup on you guys, last question. We have revised 27 studies to fight blockchain IoT, using blockchain IoT and AI and smart contracts, working together to fight greenwashing in how many ways? Let's see if you pay attention on the previous slide. Just guess if you don't. And as you answering this one, is just to check up on you, we can open the Q&A. Joel.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Manuel, for the presentation. Let's open up for the chat. The first question is actually, what is the title of the paper? Are you publishing the paper?
Oh, my paper.
Yes.
I haven't. No, I'm working on the paper. This is just the initial literature review for the paper. So I'm actually presenting here is the literature review for the paper.
Very good.
Not yet completely studied. I need more case. I'm grabbing information on the case studies, on the implications when the money was granted, and so on and so forth.
I do have a question for you, Manuel,
Yes.
which is, when you studies, do you see already like established companies implementing ESG KPIs and metrics in their systems and actually doing transition finance?
Right. What I saw, Joel, that there is a lot established on the funds for the green fund, and there were I couldn't find one that was working on the transition finance yet. The main reason could be that even the rules within the European zone they're not very clear for accessing the transition finance. So like small in the world of blockchain, I saw that PwC as a big company, they are actually trying to access that credit and bring it to the companies, but not as a blockchain solution just yet. And I guess it's because of the unclearness of the rules. There is no actual KPIs for like a proper set of KPIs for the transition finance. One of the issues, in my opinion, is because we're not working on a company level based. We're working on a project level based. That is, every project is completely specific and different, and we cannot apply project finance properly because most of these projects are not they do not make sense. They are not profitable compared to the other option, the option that pollutes more. I'm not sure if it makes sense, my answer, Joel.
No, definitely. I see it in other ways. I think legislation is slow, and when it advances, it's not very clear for companies in general. Loopholes or gray areas to explore. So I think when these types of initiatives that I think are very good get out, they should be properly positioned so that companies can adopt it more easily, right? So yeah. I would like to open the floor for others to ask questions if you are interested. Okay, Rodolfo says, how do you see AI agents being used here?
Oh, that is definitely a good thing because it's right here actually. The important thing here specifically for AI and because there are two elements right here. The first one is real time reading of the information, because some of the smart contracts here they need to have some kind of verification outside. So they need oracles, as we call it in the blockchain, and these oracles need to be kind of intelligent because they are not simple. Oh, go there and check if the payment was done. Go there and check if this document is correctly signed. There are more complex things. So AI can be used within the contract, and then also in the detecting fraud. That's looking at the whole blockchain with everything that's being recorded, and then trying to identify companies afterwards that actually made it greenwashing. And then we could actually try to recover the money that was given. So AI is a big part here because the smart contract is not smart enough. And we need, for this thing, we need smarter contracts. And then the smarter contracts need AI. Not sure, Rodolfo, do you?
I have a follow-up question to that one, which is when you say more complex smart contracts, is it the mapping of the process needs to be better or well done in order for the whole process to be correctly covered? Is that it?
Not exactly. The mapping can be the same, but the set of documents that will be used for one specific project will be different from another one. So we say, oh, the part of the smart contract will be upload all the documentation for accessing the money. Here are the documentation. We can say that somebody in the government actually reads all the material and give you the okay. That would be the typical smart contract. that somebody else's that has the power, like is a user that can actually go there in the smart contract, use the smart contract and say verified. Or we can put an oracle that does it automatically, that reads the thing, call some OpenAI APIs, check if the document actually meets the standards, read if everything was there, if all the signatures are okay, and we can automate that. What's the problem? That documentation, we cannot say, fill up this form. Well, it depends. If it's a solar farm, or it's different from EV batteries not using not using acids or using other type of batteries. It's a completely different project with completely different definitions. So that is the thing. We need a set of documents. Which documents will come? This thing, it's a project based with a lot of money involved. And then here's what the AI can be applied, because the oracle becomes more complex. That's the.
Can I just make
That's
a
where.
hello everyone? I just would like to ask like about the AI agents. Like, do you see them like a generative AI, or do you see them like a blockchain infrastructure that have like these machine learning models to just calculate benchmarks to verify these these parameters
Right.
of trust?
Right. That will be. Who was it? Rodolfo.
Yes, it was me, Rodolfo. Yeah.
Rodolfo. I see both of them. Not to be the first is the machine learning, because here, as we work with ratings are typically we have to rate a company as AAA to C. Typically, there is, in all industry there will be one AAA and one C. It's all industry based. In the end of the day, the best company in one industry will receive the AAA. There is always somebody in the industry that will be kind of AAA, the best company in that sector. Not necessarily, but typically a double A or a A will always exist. So here we always getting like in comparison as a reference. So for those type of comparisons, machine learnings are better. Do you understand, Rodolfo? So if we're getting statistics and
Yes.
metrics and measurement, it's better to compare with the machine learning. And then with that comparison, we can say, if A, B, and C happens, we do D. Do you know what's better than Python to implement those actions? AI. AI can do those actions better than go and make a program, because you tell the generic thing and then let the agent do the work. That could be what you're saying here, Rodolfo, is maybe even the calls to the smart contract is done by the robot, by the AI robot, but based on calculations on kind of machine learning in the end of the day. But that's a personal opinion. I have a personal opinion that the machine learning is still valuable, but that's my bias.
Thank you. Thank you, Manuel. One final question from Nuno here. When you discussed adoption, considering a hype cycle like Gartner, where do you think Europe stands in the process?
Of blockchain or
of the transition?
Okay, because that's different. Let me
Yes.
answer both. Okay, for blockchain, I think we are much behind countries like China and the US in the adoption of blockchain, because there are a lot of things, even in pharmaceuticals, that people are doing in the United States that we're not doing here, and we could. But transition finance is the reverse, is the opposite. We are more advanced on transition finance compared to the US and other markets, because we're more in favor of the sustainability things. And in my opinion, because sustainability is a Europe differentiator at the end of the day. It becomes a competitive advantage for Europe. So it's something that Europe is investing not only because it looks good, but because it is good for Europe. That is
I
as a
love it.
business.
I love it how you finished this last question and the session. This was very nice tone. Very nice tone. Thank you so much, Professor Manuel, for the presentation today. I would like to pass it to Nuno to close the session. Then, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. I have to thank you for the wonderful session, and Joel for moderating this last part of it. I would say that I learned a lot. I didn't know a lot about transition finance, etc. So it was really eye-opening for some matters that I didn't even know they existed. They were like unknown unknowns. So it was great to see that they just became known unknowns. So
Good.
next time I will have the opportunity, or in the future, to explore this a little bit more. So thank you once again. I have written down on the chat, we have a survey if people want to take the survey regarding the session, or if they want to attend the certificate, please go through the survey and write down your information. It doesn't take you more than 2 minutes. If it takes you more than 2 minutes, something is wrong, probably. So it's quite a rather quick survey. And I would like to say that we'll be having another section like this on next Thursday, on the 26th. And we have lined up also for the 8th and the 10th of July. It will be our last sessions this year. Well, if we're talking about school years, because we'll be returning in October. So I hope that you have enjoyed the session as much as I did, and hope to see you back one time, okay, in the future. Bye for now, and if it's the case, happy holidays for everyone in the summer holidays. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Manuel.
Bye. Ciao.